So a lot of work around apprenticeships. And the second thing it does is around financial advice. And you go, well, you know, a lot of you are in that business. Well, this is why it's important. In the UK, the vast majority of people who are abused are women. Men get abused, but the vast majority of people who are abused in the UK are women. And the main reason that women stay in abusive relationships is because their man controls them financially. And a lot of the work that the National Skills Academy does is to educate women to show how they can break free from this particular control. So I make no apology for giving a commercial, but it's a brilliant charity, and I would recommend it to all of you who work in the industry. Jo wasn't quite right when she said I'm a brilliant guitarist. I'm a brilliant guitar collector. I'm an absolutely terrible player. Some of you know about Metro Bank. We launched it in 2010. We had the idea in 2007. And everybody said, you've got to be crazy. You know, a new bank in the UK, what's the chances of that? Well, it came out of my view of marketing. And unlike most of you, I'm not a particularly clever marketer. In fact, we have people from the Atom marketing team back who can vouch for that. Neil can vouch for that. Marketing for me is really simple, or my definition of it is, it's about looking at data to find an opportunity, looking at data to find an insight that drives an opportunity. And our problem today is we're drowning in all the data told us then, the data tell us today, that what matters to customers of banks is value. And banks think that just means price. But actually it's not about price, it's about a number of things. So convenience is really important to people. Being able to bank when they want to. That's why we open Metro 7 days a week from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. Because for a lot of people, being able to bank on their way to work or their way home was really valuable. We did not give anyone sales targets. Then most of the high street banks you went into, the person you met at the door, the greeter, the person behind the counter, the teller, the person behind the desk, had sales targets. And about a third of their income came from selling you things. And I don't think you can claim to be customer-centric and put your customer first if you then reward your people for selling your customers things. So we changed that. We said nobody gets paid for selling anything. People only get paid for giving great customer satisfaction. And we measured that religiously every day, but it was about satisfaction, not sales, which is what drove Metro. The result of that was 8 out of 10 of our customers recommended us, and about half of our new accounts were coming from existing customer recommendations. So it's not just altruism, it had a real commercial value. Atom Bank we talked about. In breaking news, we actually moved up from number 8 in KPMG survey last year to 6th this year. And what's, I guess, interesting, I mean, we're clearly very proud to be voted number 6 in the global fintech challenges around the world. But what is interesting, if you look at it, you can't see this map at the back, but of the top 10, 5 are in China, 2 are in Europe, and 3 are in America. We were the only one in the UK. I think that's an indictment of our industry, because we've got such innovative industries here. You know, we should be doing a lot better than that. Joe also kindly mentioned the piece of BDRC research. I would normally say a sample size of 20,000 for the UK was spurious, statistically spurious, but given they said we were the UK's most recommended bank, I'm very happy to go along with that fine particular piece of research. The key things I want to talk about are really about 2 things. It's about enterprise, because we are a nation of entrepreneurs, and innovation. So that's really the guts of what I want to talk about in the next 10 minutes or so. And Joe stole my thunder here, because I was going to use that particular quote, but I believe absolutely passionately that the purpose of a business should be to offer its customers a better product, or a better service, or a better experience. If we do that well, and we manage our business effectively, we will be profitable. Now, I'm not against profit. You know, if you've met my wife, you would know that profit in the Thomson household is very important. But it has to be that way around. Profit has to be the byproduct. And just too many businesses in the UK think they exist to make money. So it's about, you know, what is the purpose which underpins the business first and foremost. Again, you can't see this terribly well, but it's a photo of me and my son Felix. When people say, you know, what am I trying to create with Atom or any of the things I'm doing? And I say, for me, it's about building a monument. I don't mean that in the egotistical sense of, you know, here, look at me. But I'm trying to build something that will outlive me. That my kids can look at and go, yeah, my dad was part of that. That was, you know, it's really good. He was part of building that. Or if I'm lucky enough to have my grandchildren, will be able to look at it and say. So it's a monument. It's about building something on a core of real bedrock of values that has longevity. So that's what drives it. And you know, I hope Atom will outlive me. In fact, at my age, it almost certainly will outlive me. Just a couple of thoughts on how do you build something that isn't the same. So I've talked about this value, not price bit. And for Metrobank, it was all about give customers the best possible experience, whatever channel they want to use. Bear in mind, we started on this back in 2007, very, very different world. You know, the iPad didn't come out until 2010. And you know, I would not claim to be technologically prescient. When the iPad came out, I remember getting one and seeing one going, what's the point of that? Who's going to buy this, I said. It's got no keyboard, can't plug anything into it. I think we've got 6 now between my wife and the 3 kids. At least 6. So don't use me as a kind of, you know, forecaster of technological developments. But then you scan forward. Oh yes, experience. Anybody been to a Metrobank branch? Anybody got an account? I've still got shares. I want you to have. Would like to have. Excellent. Good. Have you seen the coin counting machines? Does everybody know about the coin counting machines? Yes. For those of you who don't, very, very simple. Most banks, if you have change, loose change, here's a simple piece of research. Most men have a jar of change at home. Men, who's got, yeah, we've got most, we're willing to admit to it. Women don't do that. Yeah? How many women have got a jar of change at home? Oh, yeah, more than normal. Normally women don't, because I go to Starbucks and I go, have a coffee, here's a £5, I get change, goes in my pocket, goes in the jar at home. Women, they go, it's £2.95, they go, I've got that. And they make £2.95. This is not a sexist, I'm not misogynist, it's just generally the way these things work. So men have lots of change, and apparently now, so do quite a lot of women. If you want to take that into High Street Bank, you have to count all your pennies till you've got 100. They won't accept 99 or 101, or your 20p's or your 5p's or your 10p's into similar exact amounts before the bank will take them. And then when you've done that, and they deign to take your coins, they will charge you between 8 and 13% for the privilege of doing that. So for the finance directors here, that's between 8 and 13 pence in the pound. So what we did is we put these coin counting machines in every branch of Metro. And they have a little screen. You can play a game if you're a kid. There's a game kids can play. If they guess within 10% of the value of their coins, they win a prize. So what we discovered is kids pre-count the coins, put them in, guess exactly, win a prize. Which I think says a lot for the financial education of our country going forward. The machines cost about £20,000 with the machine, the hardware, the software, and all the dressing and everything that goes with it. And we put 2 into every branch. The reason we put 2 in is because they break down. And they break down because of foreign objects. And they're American machines. Do you know the most common foreign object to make these machines break down? Have a guess. Drawing pin? Yeah, but it's probably something you have in your pocket. Maybe a drawing pin?
Staple.
Sorry?
Staple?
Staple? What are keys? Bullets. In America, the main reason these machines break down is because of bullets. We have not had that problem so far in the UK, but then again, we've yet to open in Brixton. Do you still live in Brixton?
Yes.
You moved, okay. But that was the reason we weren't going to open Brixton until you moved. So, these machines cost £20,000 each. We don't charge for them. It is an investment in the customer experience. It is about making our customers' lives a little more pleasant. So here's the acid test. If you, and there's 43 Metrobank stores now, call them £40,000, call £40,000 for 2 machines. That's north of £1.5 million of investment in the customer experience, for which there is no return. Could you go to your board and say, and put it into your own proportions, the size of your business, I want to spend £1 million or 500,000 or 10 million just on making the customer experience better? How would they feel about that? Oh, time for a photo. My wife wants to know where I am tonight, so I promise I'll take. Is it all right to take photos?
Yeah.
I'm not very good with smartphones. That's it. So, what I'd like you to do is just for a moment pretend you're enjoying yourself. So on 3, because it's their party, I want to send them a photo. So forget about me. Think team spirit and big one, cheer. Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, I'll make you okay, 1, 2, 3! Yay! One, two, three! Yay! Thank you. Right. Pleased to know, not much more. So how do you build a new bank that isn't safe? So what was the insight that drove Atom Bank? Anybody got a mobile phone?
Yeah.
Stupid question. Here's some American research, which we're going to test on you guys in a moment. What is the first thing on your mind when you wake up in the morning?
Donald Trump.
Is it? It must be great for people in the back who can't see the slide. What's the first thing on your mind when you wake up in the morning? Is it your robe, your bathrobe? Is it your remote control? Is it your toothbrush? Is it your first cup of coffee? Yeah. Is it your significant other?
Nah.
Or is it your smartphone? 35% of Americans say it's their smartphone. And usually when I do this in the UK, people are more honest than you lot and will put their hands up and say, it's that for them. This is even better. Where is your mobile phone located when you fall asleep at night? Okay, so who knows? 4% of Americans say, I don't know. I don't believe it. In another room, how many of you leave your smartphone in another room? Well, America says a quarter. I would reckon that's about less than 10% of you. On the nightstand, yeah, pretty popular. 55% in America. On the bed, we have at least one honest person. In my hand. Sorry, in your hand, not mine. 3% of Americans say it's in their hand. I mean, why? Is it on vibrate? Why would you have your phone in your bed? I don't know. So yeah, the insight. Why would you start a bank based on mobile phones? Well, I think that tells you everything you need to know about it. We talked about the purpose of Adam. I'm not going to dwell on that. Final two things I want to talk about is about belief and about innovation. And I can do that at hopefully about 4 minutes if that's all right, Joe. So, anybody know who this is? For those of you who can see the screen. Would you like to guess what he does? This is the interactive bit. Do you have a wild guess? Mountain climber, yes. This is an American called Eric Wennermeyer. And apparently this is a photo of Eric Wennermeyer on top of Everest. Now I'm not so sure because the mountain in the background looks taller, but apparently it's Eric Wennermeyer on Everest. And Eric Wennermeyer is quite an amazing man. I had the privilege of hearing him speak once. He is a very successful mountain climber, obviously on top of Everest, but he's blind. And he was sighted until he was 7, and then he lost his sight. So he knows what it is to be sighted, but has been blind since the age of 7. And he set his life about proving that it can be no disability. And he said something which struck me as visceral. I'll just share it with you. He said, you've all heard the expression, seeing is believing. Yeah? That seeing is believing. Eric Wennermeyer says, that's not it. He said, believing is seeing. Believing is seeing. If you believe in what you are doing, you will see the outcome. And you will have good days and you'll have bad days, and you'll have good weeks and you'll have bad weeks, and you'll have good months and bad months. But if you believe in what you are doing, you will see the outcome. And I meet everybody who joins Atom Back and I say, do you believe in what we're doing? Because if you don't, you shouldn't be here. You should go somewhere else. Life's too short. And if you don't believe in it, we'll find out and you'll go somewhere else anyway. So you might as well make your mind up sooner. And my example, or one example of this was, when we were raising the money for Metro Bank, some of you might have heard the story, it was incredibly difficult. Nobody believed there was an opportunity for a new bank. We tried to raise about $100 million. Couldn't get any traction in the UK. So we went to America, and whole series of roadshows, really tough. After 3 weeks, by the Friday, we had commitments to $116 million. So for once, it looked like this was really going to happen. My joke is I flew home on the Friday night from New York, told my wife the great news on Saturday morning. She went out to spend the money. And on the Monday, Lehman Brothers went bust. And of the $116 million that were committed on the Friday, 65 million of it disappeared on the Monday. It had virtually all gone by the end of the week. And you could go, just now would be a great time to give up. But we believed in what we were doing. And we kept going, and it took a long time. It was tough, but we finally got there. So believing is seeing. Anybody know who this is? Again, sorry, it's not a great photo. It's a guy called Cliff Young. He's an Australian. Anybody heard of Cliff Young? So this is back in 1983. There was a very famous race, still takes place to this day, from Sydney to Melbourne. About 800 kilometres, 550 miles. This is a running road race. 550 miles. And you start, and the winner is the first one to get to the end. So you just run as much as you can all day, stop and sleep, get up. And it's all people who are sponsored by the big athletic firms, Nike, Adidas, and so on and so forth. And this guy, then 61-year-old Cliff Young, a farmer from Queensland, turned up and said, "How do I register?" And he paid his $10 or whatever, and he entered the race and dressed like that. And at the end of the first day, when the professional athletes were ending their day and stopping for their food and their massage and their tents and all their support stuff, he was 10 hours behind them. When they got up the next morning to start at 6 a.m, he was in front of them. He just ran all night. And he ran for 5 days, 5 hours, and 4 minutes. And he won this race. And he was asked, "You're not an athlete, you're a farmer. What on earth made you think you could do this, let alone win it?" He said, "Well, my dad would send me out to round up lost sheep." And he said, "I wasn't going to get any supper till I came back. So it took me 3 days. I did it for 3 days. I just believed I could do it." So, believing is seeing. And as Akio Morita, the founder of Sony, said, "The biggest assistance I've had is a total failure of nerve on the part of Western businessmen to make a move without research." Not knocking research, very important. But so many of us are hidebound. We won't do anything without research. If you believe in what you're doing, get on and do it. My final point, I'll go through this really quickly. It's about innovation. So there are 2 types of innovation. There's what's called momentum innovation, which is where you take what you do and you improve it slightly, bit by bit, incremental improvement, called momentum innovation. Then there is disruptive innovation, which is when you change a category. And that's what we're trying to do. But there are some problems to do this. And I cite for you the example of the Model T Ford. When Henry Ford introduced it, oops. Okay. Well, it's a picture of a Model T Ford and a horse. There we go. When this was introduced, would you say that this was disruptive innovation? Yeah? Who would say that's pretty disruptive? Now I disagree with you. When the Model T Ford came out, it had a range of about 110 miles. But horses can do up to 200 miles in a day. The thing that restricted the range of the Model T Ford was access to gasoline, because Henry Ford invented the car before they invented gas stations. So there wasn't an awful lot of gas. You had to find it in particular places. The top speed of the Model T Ford is 44 miles an hour, which happens to be about the fastest a racehorse can run. And in terms of going over unmade surfaces, crossing riverbeds, going up gravelly hillsides, the horse was much better. But then it comes to power. The Model T Ford had 45 brake horsepower, that's its power output. How many horsepower does a horse have? It's actually a trick question. No, it's not 1. You'd think it would be 1, wouldn't you? It's actually 15, because it's a measure of output. I can't get into the mechanics of it because I don't understand it, but a horse outputs roughly 15 horsepower. So if you put 4 horses together with a wagon, you've got more horsepower than a Model T Ford. You can take more stuff in places you can't take them in the car. So you go, well, was it that innovative? Was it really disruptive at the time? But you go forward just a few years, and again, I exaggerate to make a point with a picture of a Tesla, but even a few years later, there was no comparison between a horse and a car. I think the challenge is there's a lot of disruptive things happening out there, but in their early stages, they don't look that different. And I think one of our challenges is to recognize what is truly disruptive, when at the time you go, well, how's that different to my horse? How's that car different to my horse? I mean, today, who would have a horse rather than a car? Unless, you like riding horses, or you're French and you like eating them. Otherwise, you're gonna have a car. So I think the challenge around innovation, around disruptive information, is actually recognizing what is truly disruptive in the early days. And this is the final thought I would like to leave you with, because over the last 30 years, I've had a lot of ups and downs. I'm sure you've had a lot of ups and downs in your life, and I know in the agency world, which I had some experience of many years ago, it is a roller coaster ride of ups and downs. And it's a thought from Winston Churchill. And it is this. He said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." Onward and upwards, everyone. Thank you.